Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being here today. My name is Maximo Santana. We're going to talk all about POAPs today on this beautiful, beautiful day. We have people with us from Atlanta to Brooklyn to the Philippines to Toronto, and I'm sure everywhere in between as well. We're going to talk about these wonderful, digital collectibles we know as POAPs. We're going to talk about their place in the grand scheme of things when it comes to NFTs. And then I'm going to tell you about some things I've learned from distributing POAPs and talking to people who are knee deep in the world of these digital collectibles. But first, who am I, and why am I a great person to talk about this kind of stuff? My name is Maximo Santana. I'm a Web3 educator. You can find me on all platforms at Jet Shark Lambo. Just put the three coolest things you can name, put them all together, and you'll find my face. You can stay in touch with all the things that I am touching. I work with a bunch of hyper local organizations. I work with a bunch of blockchain projects that are here for just that small community, and so that they can live and thrive and find all sorts of applications for the blockchain within their small group, right? So a lot of the groups I work with aren't necessarily here trying to scale to like 1 billion users or anything like that. We're trying to find a community that can use some of these blockchain tools and make it easier for them to do that. And that means if there's 7 people using it, that might be all the success we need. So I work with organizations like the one I started, Non-Fungible Oakland, where we go to community festivals and we hand out NFTs. We hand out POAPs. And I've been running Non-Fungible Oakland for just about 6 months now. And I've handed out hundreds of POAPs at live street events and onboarded a whole bunch of people onto the blockchain using this awesome, cool technology known as the POAP. I also work with NFT Oakland. I did onboarding and operations for NFT Oakland, and I made sure that we, we're running above board, and everybody in the city of Oakland that could possibly shut us down had no reason to shut us down, because I went through and got a bunch of permits for public space, noise, block party kind of stuff, and made sure that everybody heard of us. And then currently I'm working with OAKLAND-BASED, which is a hyperlocal community-based currency to get people in Oakland, California, more familiar with blockchains to solve their problems. So throughout that, I've educated thousands of people on blockchain projects, NFTs, decentralized finance, cryptocurrency, and gotten hundreds of people to create their first digital currency wallet and collect their first collectibles, or invest in their first decentralized finance project, or buy their first cryptocurrency, all that stuff. I'm about getting people from 0 to 1 and all things blockchain crypto. That's me. But today is not really about me. I'm going to be down here in the corner, just walking us through a bunch of really cool stuff, mostly around POAPs. And I've said the word POAPs a lot. Let's actually dig into what a POAP is. POAPs are NFTs minted in recognition of a moment that created equity in the relationship between its holders. That was a quote from Isabel Gonzalez, and she is the COO of POAP Inc. So she's been working with POAP for a very long time, and she's got what I think is the best definition of what a POAP is, right? It is an NFT, but this NFT isn't just a picture or a video or music. It is a moment. It is time put onto the blockchain to say there was a communal experience shared by a bunch of people, and it is represented by everyone who has this token shared in that communal experience. That's what a POAP is. So example you can see right here is this Oakland First Fridays, May 2022 POAP. And it's got a clipper card. If you've ever been to the Bay Area, clipper card is what you use to get on the train and on the bus and everything in between. It's like our public transit card, right? And Non-Fungible Oakland, one of our goals is to digitize Oakland, right? And we offer people digital artifacts of Oakland as a POAP to commemorate that they went to First Fridays in May 2022. And everybody that was there and came to our table was able to grab this POAP. And we know they're there because the only place you could ever get that POAP is by coming to our table that's physically at this event, scanning the QR code, which you will only get there, and entering your address so that you can be sent this NFT right here. This NFT, as the definition tells us right here, is a recognition of a moment in time that created equity between all the people that went to First Fridays in May 2022. In short, that's what a POAP is. But there's a lot to like sink your teeth into on that. Let's look at how we're going to spend our time today. So here's our timeline. I'm going to first talk about the history of POAP so you can see who created this, what they were thinking about, and what they wanted to do with this project. We're then going to talk about proof of attendance and decentralized identity, which is really the meat and potatoes of what we came here to discuss. And you'll see the role of POAP in this whole decentralized identity framework. And then those things are about POAP in general. Then we're going to get into some specifics. So we'll talk about design and distribution, basically things I have learned from giving POAPs out to people in real life events, and talking about the things that make a good POAP and the things that make a not so good POAP. And along the way, we'll take a few breaks and we'll talk about really successful POAPs that have come out in the market that people really enjoy, and talk about why those things work. And then after all of that, you can ask me all the questions in the world. I will be here to your heart's content, just seeing what you guys got about POAPs, clarifying anything, or just talking about really cool applications that may or may not exist yet. So that is how we will spend our time. And I could talk about this stuff literally all day. So if you have infinite questions for me, I will be here infinitely. But that's what we're going to do in this time. Let's begin. All right, first thing we want to talk about is the history of POAPs. So you can see here on far left, you have February 9th, 2019. POAP was launched at the ETH Denver 2019 hackathon. So like a lot of great technical products, this was a hackathon idea that snowballed and gained a life of its own. And here we are 3 years later talking about their hackathon project. 4 Argentinian ETH devs met in Buenos Aires, Argentina, and they had been having a lot of Ethereum meetups in Argentina. And they were hosting some of these like workshops on how to become an Ethereum developer and these awesome new tools and protocols that are coming out. And they had a great idea. What if we could give people NFTs for coming out to these awesome meetup events? And what if then we could like learn about new meetup events from seeing what NFTs people are collecting from these events? What if we could meet people based off of like collecting these NFTs and finding about new friends that you didn't know about, but you now know about them because of this blockchain history that these NFTs hold and maintain? Well, they weren't the only people that thought that idea was great. So they took it to the ETH Denver hackathon and lost the hackathon. But again, here we are 3 years later still talking about it because it did develop a life of its own. Fast forward a year later, and they went literally all across the world distributing POAPs at popular Ethereum conventions. So they went to ETH Paris in France. They went to ETH India in Bangalore. They went to ETH Boston. They went to Japan, to DevCon. They went to DAppCon. They went to ETH NYC, and of course, ETH Denver as well. And in their first year, they gave out 8,000 POAPs, which doesn't sound like a super big number, but considering it's just 4 people, 1 team, and they had to create all the POAPs and they had to distribute all the POAPs, that's pretty cool, if you ask me. And that's what their 2020 looked like. Fast forward later on in 2020, and a big shift happened in the POAP space. They moved from the Ethereum mainnet, which is one of the most popular blockchains, and they took their POAPs from there and moved them on to another blockchain, the XDAI blockchain. And this allowed them to keep POAPs free to this day, all POAPs are still free for distributors, for end users. Anyone can make an event for free. Anyone can collect a POAP for free. And that's because transaction fees are very, very low. And it allows the teams that are still developing and creating POAP to pay for all of the transaction fees and not go bankrupt because they're on a blockchain with very, very, very minimal fees. Talk about fractions of a penny to send someone a POAP. Super great, and something that made sure that they continue to grow. Fast forward a year after that, September 2021, and POAP Incorporated is born. So 3 of the founders of POAP made a company, and that allowed them to hire full-time engineers and marketers and all sorts of people that do a really good job making sure that large brands can interact with POAP and have a good time. So if we go all the way back to this first slide, you're going to see a lot of POAPs. Some of these POAPs are from some pretty big brands. So you'll see Adidas in the top left corner over here. They are one of the bigger brands that's made a POAP. And nowadays, POAP has partnership with WNBA teams and all sorts of high-class fashion brands and really big players in the Web3 space. POAP Inc. Makes sure that all these partnerships go through and that everybody's happy with the work they do with POAP. And last but not least, February 2022, there are now 750,000 active wallets that have 1 or more POAPs in them. So they went from 8,000 2 years ago to 750K this year. Super incredible growth. And they're projected to surpass 1 million active wallets with at least 1 POAP this year, which is going to be a great celebration. And there's going to be some really super fun POAPs that you get for that too, which is pretty dope. Yeah, that's pretty much the history of POAP. But let's talk about what they actually did. What did they make that was so cool and popular? Even though it didn't win the hackathon they entered, let's talk about what they actually created for everybody. Proof of attendance. You might have heard proof of blank in the Web3 space, in the crypto space before. Things like proof of work or proof of stake, for example. And these are consensus algorithms. So blockchains, again, they're distributed networks of computers all over the world. And these computers have to come together to agree on what the truth is. The math that is behind them coming together to agree on what the truth is that consensus algorithm. Proof of work or proof of stake are 2 of the most popular ones. Proof of attendance is a really cool name, but it's not a consensus algorithm, right? It's more of a flashy title to let you know that they're building a protocol, right? They're building a platform that anyone can build on top of, right? And what is that platform about? It's about proof of attendance. They built a platform where a human being can set some criteria and then award somebody for meeting that criteria. And the simplest criteria is just showing up, right? Attendance. But you can set whatever criteria you want to be the criteria to attain your POAP. And through that, they've created a protocol where over 60,000 events have been created where people saying like, I've set these criteria and I've rewarded the folks who have met this criteria. That all together is known as the Proof of Attendance Protocol, or POAP for short. But what does that look like? What do people do with these things? How do you get one? That kind of stuff. I'll show you some very personal experiences I had. This is what I might look like at Oakland First Fridays. So I set up a booth at the table at First Friday, or at the festival that's known as First Fridays, and I show people some artwork, right? So here you'll see our most recent artist. His name is Andres. He goes on Twitter as Chico Grande, and he's a beautiful, beautiful illustrator. And he made a wonderful POAP for us. And I showed people what that POAP was, And I told them like, this is your proof of attendance for coming to Oakland's First Fridays. It's distributed by Non-Fungible Oakland. And if you scan the QR code at our table, you can enter your wallet address and you will receive a digital copy of this POAP. It's yours. And of course, we do this to illustrate to people the power of NFTs. What are NFTs? What is an NFT? How do I get one? All that stuff. We just want to show them that it's the simplest process in the world. You scan a QR code, you paste your address, and then bam, you have an NFT. And of course, we do that at First Fridays to show people like, this is your proof, this is your evidence that you came to First Fridays. So let's see what it looks like. This is one of the NFTs I distributed at First Fridays. You can see here, it is again that rotating clipper card. And what we're going to talk about in a little bit is how NFTs get their value. And there's two things that give a POAP value, right? And that's content and issuance. So the name of this one is called the Oakland First Fridays May 2022 POAP. The content, what you got to do to get it is attend Oakland First Fridays. And the issuance depends on like who gave it out, who are these people, right? And the first time I went to First Fridays, I was just a dude with a table handing out NFTs. Didn't have a lot of weight behind it. But now people kind of low-key know me as like the POAP guy. And they know that this person distributes POAPs, and that gives them a particular value because they come from this trusted source. And we've been at First Fridays many months in a row at this point, so people recognize our name and they start to ascribe a certain value to those NFTs. And that's kind of why people collect these NFTs. Also, we like to give people utility, right? It's not just about collecting the NFT and being like, oh, I was at First Friday. A good POAP gives people additional utility from just like, I have an NFT in my wallet. We're going to talk about what a few different people do to give these NFTs utility in just a little bit. But I first want to talk about kind of the grand scheme of POAPs in general. So we're going to switch gears a little bit. We're going to talk about social media because POAPs play a great role in the new role social media will play in our lives. In a world where social media is decentralized, looks very different than the world we live in today, where our social media presence is quite centralized. So let's take a look at the current social media landscape. It kind of looks like this. So here's the tech stack for some of the technologies you're interacting with when you use social media today in our centralized social media landscape. So you're going to see a lot of our really cool, popular friends over here that we all have some experience with. And let's start at the bottom of this tech stack. So at the very bottom here, we have user-generated content. And you have companies like Samsung and Apple and Google that will sell you some really awesome devices with really high quality cameras and really accurate sensors so that you can create the best user-generated content. We're talking about videos, we're talking about photos, we're talking about status updates, we're talking about anything you might use your phone to create, any media you create on your phone. You take these awesome images and videos and all that stuff and you have your hot takes, great. But what are you gonna do with them? You wanna share them with your family, your friends, people you care about. So you're probably gonna upload them to some sort of social graph. And that means a website created by Meta or Twitter or TikTok that takes all this user-generated content and then shows you which stuff you probably are gonna like. And this might be from people you already have connections with, your friends, your family, coworkers, classmates, and some people you don't know who are just into the same things that you're into, but maybe you haven't met them just yet. These websites in the middle here, they help us find new content. And they know that, and they know it's a very valuable enterprise for them. But they're also dependent on us creating user-generated content so that we can upload them here and they can surface us, you know, the right content that we're just so thirsty for while we're waiting in line at Starbucks, and you can scroll past it, right? But they don't make a ton of money just by that user-generated content stuff. the way all these companies make money is from our personally identifiable data, right? And these are all recognized industry terms. So at the very top, we have PII, personally identifiable data. And at the very bottom, we have UGC, user generated content. This personally identifiable data is where all the value is for social media companies, right? So Meta and Google form the advertising duopoly. We call that in the advertising space. 80% of every dollar spent on digital advertising goes to either Meta or Google. That's a lot of money. It's hundreds of billions of dollars every single year that they make because they know our locations, they know our spending habits, they know where we want to vacation, they know who our friends are, they know all of these things about us, and they turn around to advertisers and they sell access to that data. And while it's illegal to sell the data itself, you can hold on to that data and invite someone else in to like leverage that data they already have. So this is, I'm telling you, this is more lucrative than their messaging apps, than their cloud storage services that they also will charge you for. More lucrative than that is, again, them leveraging your personally identifiable data for advertisers so that they can reach you and tell you about this new product that you might not know about. This is the centralized identity tech stack. And what's problematic about this is how many of the same players are in multiple spaces, right? So you have Meta that has all of our personally identifiable data, and they also have the social graph. You have Apple that people use to buy their phones to make all this great user-generated content, but then they also have a bunch of personally identifiable data on you as well. All of this makes it hard for any of us to kind of like pull ourselves away from any of these companies. Even if we all kind of acknowledge that it's not great to be this vertically integrated, we're already pretty deep into it. And removing yourself from any of these like Jenga pieces kind of causes the whole thing to fall, unfortunately. But that's where we're at today. One of the promises of Web3 is moving us away from this model, right? And I think that one of the key parts of that promise are, there's value in not having any of these folks own these parts of the process. But the key one that Web3 wants to make is this personally identifiable data piece, right? Again, all the value that these tech companies get come from having this personally identifiable data and being able to leverage that for marketers, right? And if we were able to own our own personally identifiable data, perhaps we would get to benefit from the immense financial value that that data brings to marketers and advertisers. So let's talk about what this might look like in the future when identity is decentralized, right? And we can move away from these companies or really supplement them with other tools that are less dependent on the things that these companies have already created for us. So here's what a decentralized tech stack is shaping up to look like. We have a bunch of new players in the space. And before I even break down the decentralized tech stack, let's talk about how Web3 is not going to eliminate Web2. All of those awesome Web2 things that I just showed you are still going to exist. And a lot of them might even get more popular later on down the line. But these Web3 tools will add a new layer on top of that and allow people to do things that they weren't able to do before. Also, all of these Web3 tools have the same functionality as the Web2 stuff. They're just adding the Web3 component on top. So just like I'm able to share status updates and videos and photos on Twitter, I can also use these decentralized social graphs like Lens Friends to share my videos and my status updates and my photos. But Lens Friends lets me do that and more. So let's talk about that and more. Here's some parts of the tech stack that do have some Web2 equivalents and that don't just now. Let's start at the bottom. We have user-generated content down here. That's where POAP comes in. POAP, these awesome tools that can prove that you did something, you went to some place, you took a specific action. That's the new user-generated content. So back in the day, if I wanted to find my friends on Facebook, I had to tell Facebook where I went to school or where my previous employers were, right? And then they can use that information to find people that went to the same school or had the same employer and said, you're probably going to be great friends with this person. In the decentralized tech stack, POAPs are one of the primary data signals we get to like figure out the social graph, right? I want to figure out who's connected to each other. Well, you went to Oakland First Fridays in May of 2022. I know this other person went to Oakland First Fridays because they have the same POAP as you have. You guys do the same stuff. Y'all should be friends. Bam. And that's one way you build the social graph. Another way is through NFTs. So I have an NFT from the collection Loser Club. If you sign up to any of these services and you also have a Loser Club NFT, it's gonna see that we both own NFTs from the same collection and say, you should be friends. And maybe we should. Another piece of user-generated content that is gonna come from Web3 is voting activity. So there's a tool called Snapshot. And if you're active in a DAO, then your DAO probably uses Snapshot to validate you own the assets you need to own to be in that DAO and that you're voting. And that's where you go and see what proposals people put up for and to lay down your votes. In the future, in this decentralized Web3 tech stack, we can use your voting history to say like, oh, you guys both are members of this prominent DAO, or you guys both voted for this specific proposal, so y'all are gonna be friends. And then we can use these social graphs here to build those connections. So let's go up a layer. We have all this user-generated content. And remember, this also includes videos, photos, status updates, blog posts. All the same user-generated content we had in Web 2 still exists. We're just adding this on top of it. Other things we can do. Content moderation here is its own bucket. If you go back a slide, all of our content moderation today is brought to you by the same people that own the social graph. So Twitter gets to say what content is appropriate, not appropriate for Twitter. Same as for TikTok, same for Facebook. In the future though, you're gonna be able to decide what content you want to take in and what content you do not want to take in. And using the blockchain, we can find trustworthy third parties that have block lists or list of muted words. Let's say I'm a big fan of Jamel Hill. I follow her on Twitter. And if she curated a list of people on Twitter for me to preemptively block, I would do that so quickly. I trust her version of events. I trust her truth. I love her takes. And if she says, well, listen, these are the people I don't mess with, and you can also not mess with them too, I would totally take her up on that. That's something you can do with a tool like Claros, where because we have a compostable social graph now, we can pick and choose which pieces of things we want to put together. We can also take other people's content moderation and bring it into our social network experience. And that way, I don't have to see all of the content that's on these social graphs like Lens Friends or Lenster or Favor. They have everything that's on the blockchain on there, everything that everyone put up. And some of that stuff is not for me. So I might curate a block list or a list of muted terms, or I might find some list that's already been curated for me. And that says, if, let's say I don't do good with alcohol and I don't want to see anyone talking about alcohol on my social media, I can curate a list or find someone that already has a list on Claros and say, ooh, I want to use that list that's going to block all this alcohol content for me and not give me any temptation. I can do that. Or whatever it is that I'm trying not to see, or a subject or a group of people who talk about certain things that I know are not something I want to have as part of my social media diet, I can find someone that has a list like that and then integrate that into any of these different social graphs so that when I go onto that social network, I see the material that is most relevant to me. So that's how a lot of these tools work. You can put them all together. You can pick and choose which ones you want. You don't have to have a content moderation solution. You don't have to use any of these particular social graphs. You don't have to use POAPs, right? Whichever one of these you want to pick and choose to curate your social media experience, that's what a decentralized tech stack allows you to do. It allows you to say, I want this social media experience, and then find the tools that combine to present that experience and allow you to go out there and build that solution so that you get the social media experience you want. And near and dear to all of this, let's go up to, again, the most valuable part, which is at the very top. We're talking about the personally identifiable data. There's this service called disco.xyz. It's the biggest company that's doing what they're doing, but there's a lot of companies that are offering similar services. And it creates what's called your data backpack. Your data backpack is where you put your personally identifiable information. You do not want that information on the blockchain. That's for everyone to see. You don't want people to know your location or other sensitive details like that. But you can put it in your data backpack. And that is a decentralized storage solution that only you can access. And there's always going to be some data that's personally identifiable that is incidentally collected by any social graph. And the problem with today is all of that data goes to the owner of the social graph. So there's not a line drawn all the time between the social graph and who owns the personally identifiable data. In Web3, though, we are already drawing a very thick line between the social graph and the personally identifiable data. When you own your own personally identifiable data, you get to decide what happens to it at every single turn. No one can use it without your consent. It costs money to add stuff there. So you're always trying to like keep it minimal. And you have to approve any transactions on a case-by-case basis when somebody wants to grab any of your personally identifiable data. Those are things right now that Web 2 cannot offer us. And right now we're building all of those solutions to be here for us in a Web 3 native kind of platform. All right. That's the decentralized text stack. And again, this is not a whole picture of what these things or what we have today, right? These are just some select pieces, right? There's more layers to the tech stack that you can add or remove depending on what kind of social media experience you want. I think the average person will dip their toes into one of each of these at least. And then our power users will have a whole bunch of really cool stuff here as well. And users that are, you know, just kind of thin and light social media users, they just might want one or two of these things. But the idea of this decentralized tech stack is now we have a composable social media experience where you can build your own social media experience and live in that world and see if that leads to a better social media diet for you. And if it doesn't, you can always tweak it away. Again, very different from the curated social media experiences we get that are at the whimsy of, you know, these tech companies that make all the decisions for us. All right, that was a lot. So let's talk about some of these things in practice. Let me disappear so you guys can see all this right here. Let's talk about what this looks like in practice. So here is a project that I love. You might have heard about Constitution DAO. In 2021, an original copy of the United States Constitution went to auction by Sotheby's, a very reputable auction house in the United States. And this group put together a bid of $47 million in Ether to put a bid on this original copy of the Constitution. And of course, there's no one person that had all of these $47 million, right? They created a DAO, a decentralized autonomous organization, and they created a community wallet, and anyone could donate money into that wallet. And depending on how much money that they put in, they were a fractional owner of that bid. And eventually, if they won, they'd be a fractional owner of an original copy of the US Constitution, hence Constitution DAO. Really great project. And the average donation was about $217, right? So, I mean, there were thousands and thousands of contributors. And of course, you didn't have to be, you didn't have to be 18 years old to contribute. You didn't have to be a United States citizen to contribute. You just had to be someone that wanted to own an original copy of the Constitution. Ultimately, their bid did not win, but they did give this POAP out to everyone who contributed to the Constitution DAO mission and vision. And contributing could look very different, right? Contributing could be offering money. It could be voting on some proposals. It could be being a content moderator in their Discord. so many different ways you could help out with Constitution DAO. But everyone who did, and there were 5,047 different people who ultimately got this POAP, they went to POAP.com, or really people in the DAO looked at all the wallet addresses for people who had contributed and said, you are able to get this POAP. And then any of those people can go to the POAP website and type in their address name, and then bam, they got the POAP from the Constitution DAO. And this to me is a historical POAP. I think this would have been the best example of what a DAO is and what it can do had they won. But even though they didn't, they still get this awesome momentum. And if we take it back to our previous example, because of this POAP, people can find each other on different sort of media platforms, right? So there could be a social graph there that looks at all the people that contributed to Constitution DAO and be like, you guys believe in the same thing, these communal ownership of these historical documents, you guys would probably be friends. If two Constitution DAO members then went on and joined Favor, Favor would look at their on-chain activity, see that they both contributed to Constitution DAO because they both have this POAP in their wallet, and attempt to foster a connection between those people in the same way Facebook or Twitter might recommend a follow or a friend to you because you guys both went to the same bowling alley a few weeks ago. The new Web3 decentralized tech stack uses these POAPs to facilitate a lot of these connections the same way that a lot of these Web2 platforms try to facilitate their connections. So that's what it might look like in the future, right? And again, we're looking at more than POAPs. We're looking at not just what you did with your on-chain activity with your POAPs, but the NFTs you bought, the NFTs you sold. You might see that two people that sold an NFT, after news came out that a founder said some unsavory comments, they can be like, oh, that tells us you guys both feel strongly about this subject. So bam, there's a connection right there. And that's just looking at people's on-chain activities for buying, selling, purchasing NFTs. Let's keep it going. All right, we're gonna switch gears here. We talked all about POAPs in general. I'm gonna tell you about some things I have learned in POAPs. So when it comes to designing POAPs, you want to pay attention to a few things. And that is content and issuance. And if we look at we're going to use the United States dollar as an example because it is a token we are all familiar with. Bam, greenbacks, dollars, right here. Here's one. So if the US dollar was a POAP, there'd be two important parts to us, right? The content and the issuance. When we say content, we mean like a $1 bill versus a $5 bill versus a $100 bill. Like what does this represent, right? This represents $1, and that's different than a bill that represents $5 or a bill that represents $10, right? The content of this token is 1. And there's other tokens out there whose content is like 5 or 10 or 100 or 50, right? This one's a 1. But a lot of people can just put a 1 on a sheet of paper, right? And it doesn't necessarily mean it's valuable at all. So what's actually valuable here is not just the 1, but then the issuance. Who gave it out and what did you need to do to get it from them, right? The issuance here is quite important. This was issued by the Federal Reserve Bank of New York or Chicago, or, there's a bunch of them. If you have dollars that did not come from the Federal Reserve Bank, I do not want your dollars. If you have dollars that do come from the Federal Reserve Bank, those dollars are actually useful to me. So it matters what it is that you got, and it also matters who gave it to you and under what circumstance did they give it to you. Those two things by far are going to determine the value that a community places on any token, just like a POAP. So let's break those things down and talk about when people do them really, really well, and perhaps when they don't do it super well. So when we're talking about content, POAP has some guidelines as to what a good POAP should be. They say social, memorable, and time-bound. When we say social, it means it should bring members of a community together. it should be something multiple people could do, right? So being the first person to collect a particular type of NFT is not social because only one person can be the first person, right? But having a POAP for all the collectors of a particular NFT, that's social because a whole bunch of people can do it just like that. And when we say memorable, it should be something worth remembering. It's entirely up to the community as to what is worth remembering. But what we mean when we say this is, for my example, like I give away one NFT that is distinct to each First Friday. So it's not just one First Friday NFT that you get at every First Friday. Each one is a different NFT. And we're remembering that May 2022 or the August 2022 or July 2021, each of those has a specific event that they commemorate. And time bound, very similar, has to be specifically mentioning something that happened within a given time frame. And last but not least, the artwork, the content, right? So not just, so again, look at the artwork in $1. And, you know, I'm not the most pro-government person, but I can tell you a lot of design went into this thing. They put like a pyramid with an eyeball on it. It's got eagles. It's got, you know, former president on it. There's a ton of different fonts on here. There's a lot of design work went into this, right? And again, I can get, you know, like a lollipop or some ice cream with it, right? That probably has a lot less design work and symbolism, yes. But clearly they did take a lot of time to make a bunch of symbolism, allegories, and really cool things to be put on with this $1. Same thing with your POAPs. You should put the same amount of energy, time, effort into making a POAP. It should look good. People should want to collect it just because, like, oh my God, it's beautiful, right? That will always get people to do it. Beyond, again, having a sociable, memorable, time-bound experience, believe me, it should look good. And if I go back to one of my first slides here, one of the first times I went to First Fridays, I did not have a screen that showed people what the art was. Once I had a screen that showed people what the art was, way more people were interested in collecting the POAP once they could see what they were getting, and they could be like, ooh, that's pretty, I like it. Then all of a sudden they wanted to get it. When I just told them like, oh, this is a representation that you came to First Friday, and I kind of focused on that like social, memorable, time-bound piece, people were not here for that nearly as much as they were for the artwork, right? So to a distributor, that sociable, memorable, time-bound piece is important, but to a collector, a lot of times the artwork is really where it's at. But there's a lot more reasons to give people a POAP too. Let's talk about issuance. All right, again, it's not just the content and what it looks like and what it represents, but who is giving it and what did you have to do to get it? So we're talking about authority here, right? So on the dollar bill, it'll tell you which Federal Reserve Bank it came from. It says Washington, D.C. on it. It says Federal Reserve note. There's a lot of like authoritative symbols on a dollar bill as well that add credibility to the content of it. So it just doesn't matter, like 5 people can give away the same artwork for the same event, but people are going to gravitate towards the authority who is in a best position to offer that POAP in that case. So what that means is like who's giving it out and what do they have to do about the event that you're going for, right? So at First Fridays, I definitely am looking forward to the day where I can have an official collaboration with the organizers of First Friday, because that would add so much authority to the POAPs I'm distributing, right? Anyone can go to any Ethereum conference and you'll find all sorts of POAPs that come from all sorts of different people there. Only one of them is going to come from the event organizers, but you'll see a lot of people that have like, oh, we'll give you the ETHCon 2020 POAP, but you got to make sure they're actually the ETHCon people, because that's the one that's going to have the most value down the line. And that's the one that's going to have the most utility too. On to the next part, utility. So giving people a great piece of art is great. But if you can give them things that happen because they own that art, that's even better. So there's all sorts of utility you can add with a POAP. You can token gate a Discord or a website. And that means that the only people that are going to be able to get to that website or that Discord are the people that own a particular POAP. That's one way to give utility. Also, you can do all sorts of really cool things on their website. They have like voting mechanisms so that you can, just vote on what you want your community to collect next, or you can ask them which artists they're interested in to collect, or what authority should you collab with next to provide a POAP that people are really interested in. That's also something you can do on their website. You can also do giveaways via POAPs, right? So you can take all the collectors of a POAP and randomize and pick one to win whatever it is that you want it to win. So all of that stuff is great examples of adding utility to a POAP. And the last one, distribution. What did you have to do? Or like, at what point did you give it to folks, right? Put it this way, like if I wanted to give people a POAP for watching a movie, it would be my best interest to get that POAP in at the end of the movie. If I gave the POAP out at the beginning of the movie, a lot of people would go grab the POAP and then leave without watching the movie. And again, if there's multiple people giving out POAPs and they know one of them just came from sitting down in the theater and walking out, that's not going to be the most valuable POAP. The one that people actually know, people focused on the issuance by distributing it at a point that actually represented attendance or whatever it was that POAP represents, that's the one that people are going to care about the most. So that distribution piece is key. And in many cases, your POAP request will not be approved if you do not have a solid plan for issuance, for distribution of your POAP. All right, let's look at an example right here. Let me get rid of my mug. This is the POAP that was given away at the January 22 MetaMask community call. It was their first community call of 2022. And they said, all right, everyone that shows up and contributes to this community is going to get one of these POAPs. Ultimately, 3,184 were distributed. And these actually had a great deal of value in the secondary market because, number one, their issuance, it came from MetaMask, like the company that makes the most popular digital currency wallet. They distributed a POAP and people thought that was really cool. So they said, yes, I want to collect one, 3,000 times. On top of that, there was a lot of speculation going on at the time that MetaMask would airdrop a token to people who were contributing to their platform. So people were paying, at its peak, people were paying $400 for this free POAP. Just a few weeks ago, one of them sold for about $175. That's because it is a historical POAP and people believe there is additional utility to owning this POAP that will qualify them for an airdrop from MetaMask. Of course, MetaMask did not say you will get anything airdropped to you by owning this, but purely because people want to speculate on the possibility of getting some free cryptocurrency, people have been trading these NFTs like hotcakes. And this is by far the most, the POAP that has the highest secondary market value is this MetaMask community call January 2022 POAP. And it's purely, again, just like a lot of the prices in this space, purely to drive speculation. But it's one of the most sought after POAPs you'll ever see in your life. All right, I did a lot of talking. We'll recap it just here. Quickly, POAP. POAPs are shared memory NFTs. They are communal recognition NFTs. It is a token in your wallet that represents that you took a very specific action, and you click in onto that token, you'll see exactly what needed to take place to get it. And POAPs are just one part of the decentralized identity tech stack. Your POAPs do not constitute your identity. They are one thing that you can use to build an identity in Web3. Just like a Boy Scout is not their badges that they got from doing all those awesome activities, right? It's more about like the person you are once you've gone through all that stuff, right? And that sash with all the badges, that's just one piece of who you are. But you have a whole identity that represents you. And then last but not least, POAPs are valued because of their content and issuance, right? So what is it? Again, talking about like the number one on the dollar bill, that's content. And they're talking about issuance, the Federal Reserve Bank of whatever state you're in. That is the authority that says, I can verify that this content is here. That is what gives POAPs their value. Who said it has value and what value they said it has. And that's it. Guess what? It's time for y'all. Questions. There's a few in the chat already. Let's see. Ooh, the chat was popping off actually. Let's go from the top. Can POAPs be used at concerts? Absolutely. Certainly, POAPs can be like a memento to be like, I went to this concert. You can just have, the first NFT I ever bought was from The Weeknd, like the singer. And what he did was just repurpose some tour visuals, like the stuff you see on the projector behind the singer, and said, well, we're going to take those graphics and we're going to offer it as an NFT for anyone who thought this tour was cool and wants to remember that. Which is a great use of that. You could have done the same thing using POAPs and it would have been free. So any event that takes place, whether it's digital or in person, those can all have POAPs. You can use POAPs for all that kind of stuff. Let's see. Other questions? Feel free to come in, ask them off mute, live, type them in. Let me know what you guys thought about all of these cool things we talked about POAPs. Oh, I see a hand. Steve, you got a question there?
Yeah. This has all been really insightful, and this is someone who has coming from someone who has some POAPs already. Because I had never thought about it in this context of building social graphs and really extrapolating information outside of, oh, I attended X event, and and not seeing it as like, oh, I can have things in common with other people who've gone to X events. But my question was, I guess, for you, and I guess your thoughts on like, do you think there could be potential for POAPs maybe to be used like in sort of like an abusive way, in the sense of because they're so easy to distribute, like kind of in I guess a spammy or maybe just borderline like derogatory way?
Absolutely, yeah. So if you go onto like the POAP Discord, you will meet a bunch of people who are very, very, very focused against what's known as engagement farming, or people who show up to events just to collect the POAP in hopes that it will raise in value so they can sell it. And they do not want to be part of your community. They do not want to engage. They do not want to like participate. They just want to grab the POAP and try to flip it, right? That's a huge problem in the community. And every month there's new anti kind of fraud features that are introduced into the whole POAP ecosystem. So yes, very big issue. And yes, there are people that take advantage of this stuff just in hopes that they might get a valuable one. And they will come to your event and take away all your POAPs. If you do not have any fraud features in place, a bunch of computers will come in, a bunch of bots will come in and snatch up all of your POAPs. But that is the power of being a protocol as well. You have to decide how much anti kind of fraud features you want to put on your drop, and make sure it's enough for you, right? So this is really prevalent on virtual events, right? So if I'm having a Twitter space, right, or I'm having a call in a Discord and I want to give away a POAP, that's kind of difficult to do because I'm either going to like drop a link that anyone can just send to anybody and use it to get the POAP, and then that's not really a good representation of who made my call. Or I'm going to make all the people that are in the call jump through 7, 8, 9 different hoops just to get them to prove that they were actually at the call. And not everybody wants to do that either. So it really is a question of like how bottable is your event, and then how How many hoops do you want your audience to jump through before they actually get their POAP? And yes, there's a lot of people trying to do the quick flips for that 0.0001 ETH. Yes, it happens. Or even the potential of a 0.0001 ETH will get a lot of people going.
Well, Maximo, what's a good way, excuse me, a good way to protect yourself from that? Can you store your POAPs, like say, on a ledger?
Typically, I don't recommend people put POAPs on a ledger just because they're free. And a lot of times, if all you're collecting is free stuff, you're not going to have a lot of people trying to take your POAP from you. That's not what we're specifically afraid of, right? Once you have a POAP, pretty safe with you. What we're worried about is people getting POAPs from the platform without having engaged in the activity that the POAP is for. That's really the big vector.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. So don't worry about putting your POAP in a fireproof safe on a ledger or anything like that. You can do that totally fine too, right? But there's not a lot of people trying to come after your digital assets just because you have a POAP in your wallet. That's not a huge prevalent thing. But great question. Victor, I see a hand up there. Do you have a question for us?
Yo, it's good. I've been tuning in, making my way back from Wally World. We had a good, successful trip. But I was curious in terms of onboarding people at events. What have been some, I guess, points of pressure that people have expressed in terms of, okay, it's actually navigating through with the technology to get a wallet? Like, how many people, I guess, express frustration with that aspect? Because I know it can be a simple thing, but some folks are just like, nah, that takes too much work. And so how do you get around folks who have that type of mindset?
Yeah, the best way to do that is to be with them as they're like getting their POAP, right? I think the power of live support is super important in the world of Web3, especially early on. You want someone over your shoulder to like guide you through the process. And for example, at First Fridays, I probably talk to close to 100 people every time I'm out there, and people that express interest and want these POAPs. And then at the end of the day, I maybe only give away 30-ish POAPs, right? From all the 100 people that expressed interest. So there's just different parts of the funnel that people get kind of stuck at. And if you're not there to help them with, they're just gonna stay stuck, right? So the best way to do it is to kind of have them do it in front of you and just be like, once you have it in your wallet, like you're good. Until then, stick right here. I'll let you know where to go. And it seems simple, and everybody with all these Web3 projects, right, will swear that their products are so simple that anyone can work through them, right? But that's just not true for your average person who has no experience with digital currency or NFTs. A lot of people are going to need help, and the best way to give them help is right in front of your face. So giving away POAPs live, you're going to have a lot more people that actually get it. Number one, because it's harder to defraud somebody live. And number two, you're going to be able to like sit there and help them if they need any kind of support, right? So everyone gets tripped up at a different place though, right? A lot of times with POAPs, you can redeem a POAP with your wallet address, and that'll instantly transfer a POAP from the protocol into your wallet. They'll also let you put in an email address, and then it'll send you an email that says, create a wallet over here, and then go over here, and then click on this, and then copy that, and then come back over here, and then paste it, and then hit mint, and then bam, super easy. Then you got your POAP, right? But as you can imagine, you know, less than 10% of people who sign up for their email end up following through with that and collecting the POAP via email. So for sure, when I see someone that wants a POAP live, I walk them through the process of downloading Coinbase Wallet or MetaMask for the first time and backing up their seed phrase and everything, and then copying and pasting their address and then putting it back. And then I'm like, now you got it, right? And again, even with apps that are like, we're the most user-friendly, we are for, you know, complete crypto newbies and all that stuff. No, you still need, even that app has people that are going to get lost, and you want to help them. You want to help them live as well. So that's a great question. A lot of people get tripped up on even the easiest kind of steps, and being there to help them just gives them kind of, a lot of times, just the confidence they need. A lot of times they don't need me to like tell them what to tap on next. A lot of times they just want, is this where I should be? Yep, you're in the right place. Hit next, bam. and then they get through it, right? So you don't have to be a POAP expert to help people get a POAP either, right? Some people just want a sure voice to help them through the process. But yeah, that again, I probably less than 30% of people that express interest actually convert to like getting the POAP. So
right. So we have some questions in the comments, Maximo. I'll just say the ones like Enoch said. You have to obtain each POAP. To obtain each POAP, you need a wallet, right? And
yes.
then Michael Sims, he asked a question if there's a way to make a POAP non-transferable, so there's no secondary market.
Yeah. So with this platform POAP, all of them are transferable, but there are many uses, and people are creating technologies to make a certain class of NFTs that are non-transferable. Those are known as soul-bound tokens. If you ever played World of Warcraft, there are some items called soul-bound items, and you couldn't transfer those items to anybody else. The first person to pick them up, it was yours forever. If you drop it, destroyed forever. On the blockchain, there's some great uses for that as well. Because let's say I was one of the first investors in a DeFi protocol, and I provided liquidity for that program when it needed it real bad. And they gave me a token to signify that I helped them out in a great time of need. Awesome, right? My wallet has that in there, and everyone can go and see that I did that, right? Now, what if I sold that token to somebody else? Someone wanted to give me 10 ETH so that they can have the title of someone that came in and helped them out at some time. They would then get the benefits of holding that token, but then they would not actually have done the thing that makes them worthy of holding that token. So that's not something we want to be able to happen with some of these events, right? A soul-bound token is exactly what you're describing right here. Is an NFT that cannot be transferred. And it means that the person who has this was the original owner, and we can rest assured that they did what this POAP or this NFT says that they did. That would be a soul-bound token, SBTs. And right now on Ethereum, they're working on upgrades. They would need to create a new class of Ethereum token that didn't have the ability to be transferred. So that doesn't exist today, but there's a lot of conversations, there's a lot of really smart people working on making that happen, because as I'm sure you can imagine as well, there's a ton of really cool uses for that. And people really want to see that happen on Ethereum. And by extension, then a bunch of different blockchains that are essentially just copies of Ethereum as well.
Before you go to the next one, I just on that same topic, I originally was going to ask, and you answered it. Can POAPs be traded? Yes, you mentioned MetaMask that demonstrated that. But what do you think personally, before we go to the next question, like the fact POAPs are proof of attendance? So if you sell it and someone else has it, yeah, they have it, but they weren't actually there. Isn't it a bit of a conundrum?
Yeah. It is, and certainly it only functions as proof of attendance to the original recipient, right? Any and all secondary sales of any and all POAPs are no longer proof of attendance, right? They are just like a way to support, It's like buying a concert ticket from your friend the day after the concert. No, you cannot go to the concert, right? But if I'm a big, fan of The Weeknd, maybe I just want the ticket stuff. Maybe the ticket stuff has value to me because I'm such a big fan of The Weeknd, even though, people might see the ticket stuff and think I went to the show. And even though that's not the case, I still want to tell people like I'm a fan of The Weeknd and they were in the city and I have the ticket stuff, right? But I could also then, I'm only one step away from telling people I went to the show, even though I did not go to the show, right? But still think about it like this. Right now, POAPs have no royalties, right? That means the person who acquired the POAP, they get 100% of the proceeds of that sale, right? So at least when you're buying that ticket from someone, you're paying the person that was there. And that's a way for them to, obtain some sort of income or some sort of, additional value from your POAP is by saying you can earn on the secondary sale. And although that person didn't come here, you can value you can continue to gain value from coming to this event even after the event because you can sell it on the secondary market. And then Steve also made a very good point on there as well. On the actual POAP platform, there's a list of minters, and that's all the people that got the POAP directly from the contract. Those people, you can be 100% certain they got it the fair and square way. And if they have the POAP and they're not on the list of minters, you can deduce that they just bought it on secondary or had a transfer or something. But yeah, I think it's a good thing, and I think it should still happen. But maybe there should be like a little, purple square or some sort of identifier that says like, oh, I bought this on secondary. I didn't actually do this, right? But yeah, still works out fine. Awesome. Thank you for that question, Stefan.
Thank you for answering it.
Awesome. Michael, I think we got your question. I know you still have your hand up. Do you have another question?
Yeah, well, thanks for answering that. The soulbound token makes a lot of sense. And I really enjoyed your presentation. So thanks for spending your time. I had one other question. So if the soulbound token, I mean, the POAP is ERC token, right? And
Yes.
so it's got a smart contract attached to it.
Mhm.
Can you build that out however you want? Like when you brought up the movie example, I thought of like, say you're at a festival and you're having a screening and you really want to get people into your screening. So you say, if you come and you watch this, my film, you'll get a POAP. And if we go on and win an Oscar, everyone with the POAP can now, I'll give you a 1 ETH, right? For being the person. So then you can incentivize people to come in. Can you build that into the smart contract?
Right now, the smart contracts are not directly editable by issuers, right? So there's one contract that has one set of rules, and then everybody kind of follows that same set of rules, right? But you can build things on top of those rules, right? And also you can reward, it's pretty transparent, right? So you'll know everyone's address that you did give the POAP to, right? And if you wanted to then on your own reward those folks or bring them into a Discord or start an email list or keep that group kind of connected in whatever way, you're more than free to do that, although that is not built directly into the contract level or on POAP at any level. But you do have access to all the information to continue to do that if that's what you want to do, to continue to provide utility or keep that group together in any way, shape, or form. That is not hard to do using these tools, although you have to go beyond these tools to do it.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for asking. Thank you for the attention. Really appreciate your time. Enoch, I see your hand up.
Let's go, Maximo. You're goated, bro. You know that? You goated. We're friends now, just so you know.
Got it.
Okay. Appreciate you so much. I just have a question. So like I could take the POAP off of the POAP application and put it in like my MetaMask, and like, can I see it on OpenSea? Because I have a couple of POAPs and they're connected to my wallet, but I don't see them on OpenSea.
Yeah, great question. So no, you will not by default be able to see them on OpenSea. So let me just show you a few places where you can see it though. So there's a bunch of different places where you can, view the contents of a wallet. So one of them is WeLook. So WeLook.io, and then you can put your Ethereum address after that. And WeLook does show you POAPs. So let me get my face out of here. So here's all the POAPs that Non-Fungible Oakland has distributed, and they're this is the Non-Fungible Oakland like community wallet, right? So we have all the NFTs that are owned by our community and all the POAPs that we've distributed, they're all here. So OpenSea does not index every single blockchain. And it really only looks at Polygon, Ethereum, and another one called Clayton. POAPs are not on any of those blockchains. You can pay money and move your POAP from the XDAI blockchain to the Ethereum blockchain, but that might cost you hundreds of dollars. You could just go to a different like NFT display website and have it show your POAPs there. So WeLook is one of them. If you have Rainbow Wallet, Rainbow is another one. You can go to rainbow.me/your wallet address, And then over here, you'll see all the NFTs in your wallet. And then you'll also see POAPs. Oh, where do they go? Slash, hold on, this is new. Oh, I guess Rainbow.me dropped POAP support, and I just found out. All right, well, they're definitely on WeLook. But you can see this is a problem with a lot of different marketplaces and NFT display websites. They don't all categorize and index every single blockchain that exists. Yes, Steve, Rainbow size. Oh yeah, and I got a Void. Void is great. But yeah, so you can go to welook.io, that will show you your POAPs, and then you can also go to like the POAP website, poap.xyz, and that will show you your POAPs as well. You can get the POAP app on your phone, and that will show you your POAPs as well. But no, unless you transfer them to the Ethereum blockchain, they will not show up on OpenSea, unfortunately. But there's a bunch of different websites that you can go and see that. Yeah,
but what is Steve saying, Maximo? He's saying you can always get a list of the original mentors or collectors of the POAP to get the true attendees as opposed to a list of current owners. What's that all about?
Yeah, so great question. So if we go to poap.xyz, we'll see a bunch of, or actually, if we go to, let's go back to the WeLook actually. So let's look at this most recent POAP we gave out. It's got an event ID right here. I can take this event ID and search for it on the POAP website and then see all the people that got this POAP originally. So poap.xyz/event/ the number, I believe that's it. Ooh, let me find quickly where the event directory is. I don't have the link on me right now, but you can see a history of all the POAPs, all the people that originally collected the POAP on the website. And every event has a event ID and a link. And if you go to that event ID website that POAP will always host, you can see all the people that got it initially. Similar to like right here, it says like, see who has this POAP. You'll see a list on the POAP website, and it's just the people that initially minted it, not just who owns it right now, but who got it from the issuer. That's always like the key distinction right there.
Right. So this is going back to the original. Were you really one of those people? This is all on chain, so it's verifiable.
Absolutely, yeah. And those people who got it from the issuers were for sure there, like in the beginning, when the person actually gave this out. So it's important to make that distinction. All right, any other questions we want to get to? Let's see, still got some folks in the building. Feel free to type them in or go ahead and speak them out. Steve has another comment here. One cool use is a real-time giveaway. Yeah, after distribution is closed, issuer can start a random giveaway and you'll see people get ranked. That's very true. And as a matter of fact, I'm going to be using this at my next event at Oakland First Fridays. So I'm collaborating with an artist that does like digital art as well as art on a wooden canvas. So this artist is going to design a POAP digitally and then also design a canvas. And then whoever collects this POAP is going to be entered into a drawing to win the canvas of that piece. So we're going to be using a POAP native tool that just finds all the people who got the POAP initially and then pick one of those winners out, and that person is going to get actual physical piece of artwork that they can display wherever they want to as well. So another way, this is just another way to add utility to the POAP is by these giveaways, which are really cool as well.
Now, Maximo, I saw on your Twitter page during the NFT Oakland Festival that you successfully hosted, were you using POAPs at some of the local restaurants? And were people able to use that POAP to get free food? What were they getting?
Yeah, so what we used there wasn't a POAP, but certainly a lot of the ideas that we put into the contract that we made for that came from our experience with POAPs. So actually, let me show you on OpenSea. And we know it's not a POAP because you can see it on OpenSea, and OpenSea will not show you POAPs. But what we did is we have right here. This is the NFT Oakland Festival Pass, which is an ERC, what is it? 1155 token. So it's not a POAP, but we partnered with a great community organization here to like write us up a contract where we had this awesome piece of work commissioned, and everyone that came to the NFT Oakland Festival, we definitely were, pushing for people to get this festival pass. And you didn't have to get the festival pass, but if you did, you could get all sorts of super awesome free stuff. So at our block party, we had a food truck there, but the food truck didn't have an iPad. They weren't scanning cards. They weren't taking cash. They were only giving away tacos to the people that had this NFT in their wallet, for example. And at the happy hour, the day before, we were at a bar, we bought out the bar. They weren't taking cash, they weren't taking money. But if you had this NFT in your wallet, you can get 2 drinks. Yes, Enoch was there. The tacos were so good. The tacos were actually really good. So we had all of these events this whole weekend that we were trying to incentivize people to download a wallet and get all these things so that they could get all these freebies. And we could have certainly used POAP for that. And one of the biggest problems, like what we talked about earlier, is that it's just difficult to display a POAP or prove you own a POAP nowadays, right? So this was great because it would show up on your OpenSea page, it would show up on your Coinbase wallet if you use that, and then we can quickly see if you had this in your wallet. Whereas a POAP, not a lot of really quick ways checking out how for us to see exactly who owns that NFT and if it's in your wallet. But some of these other tokens that do show up on OpenSea and Coinbase, a lot easier to prove who owns it, who has it right now, and then just complete that transaction right there. But if you don't have access to create your own smart contracts, you can make the same thing happen in locally for you by having a POAP, giving away POAPs, and providing different benefits to people who are verifiable owners of that POAP. You can do the same thing with that. We just wanted a little bit of a more custom solution, so we went our own route there. But this is what it looks like, and as you can see, we got 315 people to collect that festival pass for all of the different events we have at NFT Oakland, which I think was super, super fun, super, super great. So cool.
I'm curious about something.
Yeah.
And I think just before this, you were saying something that went in that direction, but I'm still not super clear. So earlier you said there were other criteria that can be set. Can you tell us about examples of how that works? Other criteria other than like being present? I've gotten a couple of POAPs and it was like, it's a little bit still magic to me. Like I was there, it was an event I support. And I'm like, oh, sure, go in. Okay, so actually in this case, they said, tweet out something with 2 names in it, but it's still magic to me. So like, how does it really look and what kind of stuff? So you could say, oh, I'm at a concert, you said earlier, like, how do you know that?
Great question, right? And there's new tools out every day to come up with great answers to that question. So let's look at some of the examples I have here, all right? So here's a very simple one. And these are the ones I do at First Fridays, right? So these are like your basic attendance-based POAPs, like you were just talking about. You have one, all you have to do is show up to get this one, right? And we say all you gotta do is show up, but really you have to show up and you have to scan a QR code on your phone and you have to give me your wallet address, right? And at the end of the day, all I want is the wallet addresses of people who did what I wanted them to do, right? So it's a collaboration between POAP and myself to devise a mechanism to make sure that only people at First Fridays can get this, right? So what I do is I set up a table at First Fridays so that I'm within the bounds of First Fridays. And I only display that QR code at that table inside First Fridays, right? That's my part of the puzzle, right? And then what POAP does for me is it gives me a really awesome QR code, a dynamic QR code that every time it's scanned, it switches the code up and gives out a different link so that you can't just take a picture of the QR code and then send it to your buddy, right? That each QR code is one-time use, right? And that's their piece of it too. So with both of those things combined, I can be fairly certain that the only people that got that POAP came to the table at First Friday and they got the POAP that was being distributed there, right? That's one way to do it, right? So what I did was I had basically my fraud prevention features were all physical, right? I was physically at an event and I only gave it to people that were also physically at that event with me, right? That's one way to do it. But when we're doing virtual events, it can get a lot more difficult. So if I wanted to distribute a POAP here, I would have put up a QR code. That could go sideways a number of ways. What I would do is I would use a secret phrase, right? So what that allows me to do is say, I would verbally in this meeting say, all right, guys, everyone go to, if you want the POAP, go to poap.xyz and enter the following secret phrase. And I would not type out the secret phrase. I would only verbally speak out the secret phrase, right? And only the people listening at that particular moment in time would hear the secret phrase and then go to the website and put it in, right? So what I'm doing to prevent fraud in that case is I'm not writing down that secret phrase so that other people can share it. I'm only going to do it for a certain amount of time. And then I'm also going to like shut down the claims like at the end of this call, right? The claims aren't going to be like, you know, anyone who you tell the secret phrase to can just go in and type it in tomorrow and also get it. I'm going to only have that window open from, you know, 6:15 p.m. to 6:24 p.m., right? Or whatever time frame is good for me. And then when I tell people to go there, you know, that is myself and the POAP platform working together to do something to get the addresses that were for sure at this event doing what we need to do. And then one other way is if it is an on-chain event, you can just go and get the addresses yourself, right? So if I wanted to reward everyone who bid on my NFT art with the POAP saying I bid on this, right? Well, I can just go to like OpenSea, for example, if that's where my art was being hosted, and I can look at the list of addresses that bid on my art. I can copy that and then say, all right, POAP, you can give out this POAP, but only to these 6 addresses that bid on my artwork. And in that way, only when those 6 people go over to the website, they'll be the only ones able to redeem and get that POAP. So there's a whole bunch of different ways to do it. They have a bunch of different tools. And then you also need to, as an issuer, like think about what you're doing for security and use their tools to make sure only the people that met your criteria are able to redeem, right? So it's, every event's gonna look slightly different, but you have to work with the tools they give you and with what you wanna do and make sure it's still accessible to your audience, right? You're not asking your audience to jump through 87 different hoops just to get their little JPEG, right? Because at some point it's just not worth it for, you know, an issuer, right? So one of the most gamified POAPs, right now, Ethereum is going through a massive upgrade and people want to be parts of those moments of history of like, I was there when Ethereum went from here to here, right? So there'll be these massive community calls with thousands and thousands of people. And again, people speculate that these POAPs will be NFTs that have tremendous value in the future with some airdrop or some, you know, token from Vitalik or something like that, right? So people are really interested in these and want to trade them. So in order to get an NFT, you have to not only show up to the call, but when you show up to the call, they give you a wallet address. Then you have to send money to the wallet address from this time to this time. And then only the people that send money to that address from this time to this time, they collect all the addresses and then they send you the POAP, right? So they have to have a number of layers of things because they've been so, you know, botted and people have engagement farmed those events to such a degree that they need to have a lot of different features in place to stop bots from getting it. So long story short, it's a constantly evolving process. And if you don't want bots to get your stuff, you have to have some pretty intricate stuff in there for a virtual event, or you can just go in person. It's way easier to make sure all of your POAPs are given away legitimately in person than it is virtual. So you have to consider all of that when you're trying to give away POAPs, and then you'll definitely have a successful job.
Thank you very much for speaking to that. And like the fact that in person is, you know, easier, more secure.
Yeah.
I had no idea about that. So thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for asking. It's a complex topic. All right. Wow, we've been at it for an hour and a half. That's crazy to me. Any other questions we have in the space? While you still got me. All right. Nicole, I think I'm going to turn it back to you. I think we've done what we came and we set out to do.
I think you did an awesome job. Yes, you did. Can you tell us, will there be an NFT Oakland next year?
Oh, of course, 100,000%. We're definitely going to have another NFT Oakland next year. We definitely want this to be a yearly summer event. And really look at this last one, and we want next year's to make this year's festival like a little kiddie festival, right? We want next year 10 times bigger, 10 times more awesome, 10 times more attendees, 10 times more events to go to. And yeah, that was our very, very first one. I'm glad you guys, again, that you brought people out and you came and you had all sorts of cool experiences and memories and out there and everything. And we want everyone all across the whole NFT diaspora to come through to the next one. So
awesome. Good luck with that. We know it'll be successful just like this year. It'll even be 10 times more exciting for everyone.
Sweet.
Congratulations on all you've done. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge with us. And
last thing,
we really appreciate you.
To follow along with me, I am at JetSharkLambo on everything. You can also
let me put that there. Oh, there it is. It's on your presentation. Everybody go follow him on Twitter, JetSharkLambo.
And then all of these organizations also have their own Twitter accounts as well. So if you want to know what's going on with local or Oakland organizations, you can also follow Non-Fungible Oakland, NFT Oakland, OAKCurrency. Links to all that on my Twitter bio. Thank you, Enoch, for putting the link in the chat right there. You can find all the organizations I work with as well if you want to know what's going on in Oakland as well. But thank you, everybody. It was a pleasure being here. A blast. Absolute fun time. Can't believe you all wanted to hear about POAPs and decentralized identity. Like, I love that. That information is being distributed in our community here. Like, that just warms my heart. And I can't believe we're here talking about it. So thank you. Thank you all for coming out. Really appreciate it. Really, everyone connected with the Diamond Space, Nicole, Enoch. Thank you guys for just organizing this and bringing all these wonderful people together to just share and all the amazing information. So I will definitely be back. Anytime you guys want to have me on whatever topics, I will.
Oh, yay! That just made my night. Maximo, you're the best. Your energy is amazing. So love to have you back anytime.
Sweet. Okay.
Well, thank you guys for coming out to Maximo Santana's wonderful workshop about POAPs. Follow him at JetSharkLambo. Thank you so much for coming out and supporting. We hope you learned something about this wonderful topic, and we'll see you soon. We have these workshops every month, and we hope that you'll join us each time to learn more. And also, don't forget, if you're in the ATL area, this Friday, Daima is having a social at the usual in Buckhead. Okay, so go to the Daima Twitter space. You'll find out the address, the time, all of that. Hope to see you there so you can network and see people face to face in real life. All right. Thank you so much. Next time I go to Oakland, California, I'm giving you a call, Maximo, so we can have coffee.
Yes, absolutely. I look forward to it.
Awesome. Thanks again, everybody. Y'all have a good night. Take care.
Good seeing everybody. Goodbye.
Good night, everyone. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Later, Maximo. Catch y'all, fam. Stay up. Boop, 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 boop.